Hey guys, welcome to this session on React Bootstrap by Intellipaat. In this session, we'll take a look at how you can use React.JS and Bootstrap CSS in order to integrate both of these technologies in order to build better looking user interfaces. React.js is a JavaScript library, whereas Bootstrap is a styling library. Both of these are used in order to create compelling user interfaces, but how do you integrate them and how do you use them is going to be the focus of this live presentation. In case you have any questions, please put them down in the question box and we'll be more than happy to answer. Let's take a look at the agenda. But before we begin, please subscribe to our channel and click on the notification bell icon to never miss another update. Also click on the like button if you like this video and put down in the comments what else you would like to cover next. So let's take a look at the agenda. We'll begin by taking a look at what is React.js. We'll then move on to take a look at the advantages of React.js. We're assuming that you have no background in JavaScript or you don't know JavaScript that much. So we'll just explain what is React.js and why you would want to use React.js. Then we'll move on to take a look at what is Bootstrap. Then we'll take a look at the advantages of using Bootstrap. And then we'll take a look at a hands-on in which we're using Bootstrap with React. In case you have any questions regarding any of the technologies that we're covering, you can ask us in the question box. In case you wish to learn where you can learn these technologies, you can stick with us till the end of the presentation and we'll guide you through the resources through which you can learn these. So let's take a look at what is React.js. So React.js is a user interface library that allows developers to build small self-contained UI components that can be used to build the UI. So React.js is a JavaScript library that allows us to build user interface components. Now, the difference between React.js and other libraries that it competes with, like Angular and Vue, is that React focuses solely on the user interface aspect of the puzzle of the entire web application. Before React.js and before JavaScript heavy user interfaces, we used to use HTML to build out the user interfaces and use JavaScript to just manipulate the dynamic aspects of it by fetching the data, updating the DOM, and all of this. The problem with that was that the majority of work that was being done by JavaScript was highly inefficient. Creating new DOM elements, attaching them to the JavaScript DOM, internal DOM representation, and removing those when the data updated was really tricky and difficult and could lead to a lot of bugs. Now, in order to overcome this, Facebook created a library called React.js. So it is specifically used to build the user interface. It has a special syntax called JSX that allows us to write code that looks like HTML but will be converted to React.create element calls. So basically, you instead of writing the entire code yourself, you can write code that's mixed with HTML like code, and then that will be converted into JavaScript by the JSX compiler. The main thing to understand is that it allows us to create components. These components are basically small self-contained user interface elements which you can place in any of the React applications, and when you do, it will be displayed in the screen and will be integrated with the entire user interface. These components are mixed and matched and converted in a hierarchy so that you can show them in a user interface and build a user interface with them. So React.js allows developers to write declarative code in JavaScript to efficiently piece together the user interface. The reason why React.js is so popular is because it is one of the most efficient way of building JavaScript web applications or the front end of it. React.js, as we have discussed, only takes care of building the user interfaces. Other aspects of the user interface such as routing and data fetching, caching, storing data, updating data, retrieving data, all of that is taken care of by other libraries which can integrate well with React, but you can hand roll your own solution and that will work as well. The reason why React is also one of the most popular libraries nowadays is because it allows developers to write declarative code. Declarative code basically means you just declare how you want the user interface to be structured, and then React will take care of how the user interface needs to be shown on the screen and how to deal with different scenarios where the user interface is taken off the screen, what to do when the user interface is updated or the data displayed inside that user interface is updated, and all of that. Let's take a look at some of the advantages of using React. So it has several advantages. Let's look at them one by one. The first one is scalable. So scalability is an important aspect when you're building a user interface of any size. The reason why React.js is so popular is because it's quite scalable. It works well with all sizes of applications, ranging from small personal projects to really big web applications such as Facebook, Instagram, etc. In fact, Facebook had created React.JS because it was running into some user interface problems by building it in the traditional way. One of the problems that it was facing was called a zombie chat bug, in which your user interface for Facebook will show an unread notification in the chat box. When you open it up, there would be no unread messages. So that problem was quite difficult to tackle. So they created React.js and some other technologies as well that integrate together in order to give you a better understanding of how to compose user interfaces. Similarly with Instagram, Instagram has been built entirely with React.js, and its mobile application is built with React Native, which is the mobile application development of React.js. Then comes compositional UI. So React.js allows us to build compositional UI, which basically means that we can compose our user interfaces with small reusable components that can be modified or even replaced if need be. To give you an example, if you have ever built a user interface using React.js, you can quickly understand how it works by basically understanding that if you have small components, you can mix and match them, you can nest them inside one another, and you can replace one component with the other component, and everything will work just fine. That's the reason why we use compositional UI, because it's easy to substitute alternatives in a compositional user interfaces, especially when we're working with a user interface that is declared as a hierarchy. As in DOM, everything is declared in a hierarchy. Then comes portability. Portability is an important aspect of React.js as well. Since these user interface elements are built using components, React components are quite portable and can be moved from one project to the other project as long as both of them are using React.js. It is important to note that you can't move React.js components to Angular or Vue or simple web application components. But there are projects that allow you to build components that are more universal, although they don't provide same performances. So you can take a look at portability, and if you have a user interface that needs to have components that are portable and are using the same technologies that is React.js, then it's going to be really easy for you to share your code with other developers and port your code from one platform to the other platform. And finally, performant. So performance is a big aspect when you're building the front end of any application. It could be any kind of application that you're building, ranging from small personal projects such as a dashboard for your results, a dashboard for your user interface, a dashboard for your screen, to a really huge front-end application that has several components and needs to be built with a lot of care. So performance can be a big deal, and React.js takes care of it by using something called a VDOM or a virtual DOM. So instead of using the real browser DOM, which is what gives many of the applications a sort of performance jank, because the real DOM is a little inefficient when it comes to adding and removing elements uh, constantly. So what we do here is we take the virtual DOM. After taking the virtual DOM, we just replicate it with the real DOM, and that virtual DOM is then changed so that any changes made in the React application is first made to the virtual DOM. Then React takes over, takes care of comparing the virtual DOM with the real DOM, figures out the differences, and reconciles the differences. This process is also called reconciliation. It is available for you to understand on React.js's documentation. But basically, it takes a look at each element from top to bottom to figure out what has changed. As soon as it figures out the thing that has changed, it will replace those elements from virtual DOM and transfer them to the actual DOM. And then those changes will be reflected on the browser screen. So that's how React.js is so performant. Now let's take a look at what is Bootstrap. If you've been doing web development for any amount of time, Bootstrap is definitely one of the things that you've come across. So let's take a look at what that is. So Bootstrap is a styling library that allows developers to style their user interface components without writing too much CSS. In case you are a developer or you wish to be a software engineer that writes front-end code, then Bootstrap is a useful tool, especially in the prototyping stage. When you're building a user interface for a specific application and you want it to look a little more than just bland HTML, what Bootstrap does is that it allows you to use its already existing styles and you can just show it to the developers and they can take a look at the user interface, and you can just use those user interfaces for yourself. Now, these user interface components can be used in React, Angular, plain HTML. There's no need for you to use them just in React. But the point here is that it allows you to build UI components that look good quite quickly. Instead of you having to hand roll the CSS yourself, you can just use Bootstrap stuff. Let's take a look at some of the advantages that Bootstrap provides. So there are several advantages. The first one being that it's cross-browser. Bootstrap is cross-browser, which basically means that since styling is one of the most important aspects of an front-end application, and the major hiccup that comes when we're styling is that we have to take care of several browser versions, and which one of those versions support the features that we are trying to use in our code. For instance, Internet Explorer might not support box shadows while Chrome might. So these differences need to be accounted for when you're building your own user interface. And when you're using a library, you want it to be performant on at least the latest versions of all these browsers. And Bootstrap delivers on that promise. It has a really good support for all the browsers. It allows us to make sure that even if we implement our user interface using Bootstrap, majority of it will be displayed on the screen, and none of it will look inconsistent from one browser to the other. If you're using if you're using Internet Explorer, we're using Safari, we're using Chrome, everything will look just the same. Then comes lightweight. So when we're including a new library or new framework in our application, we're introducing some size or some sizable amount of code to be sent over the wire on an HTTP connection. If we are trying to serve our application in regions where the internet connection is slow, then this could be a problem. Although Bootstrap takes care of this problem for us by being lightweight. Bootstrap doesn't take a lot of time, it doesn't take a lot of memory as well. It's only a few kilobytes that needs to be transferred over the internet, especially if it's gzipped, then you can just use it easily. Bootstrap also allows us to customize our own version of Bootstrap so that we only take in the components we need, and we can take a look at that in a moment. But that's really an important feature, especially when we're trying to learn new technologies. Then comes responsiveness. So responsiveness basically means that styles are responsive, which basically means that if you were to shrink your browser size, that things are fluid and they adapt to the currently available size instead of just being cut off with an ugly scroll bar showing up. So React and Bootstrap does that for us automatically. It is responsive by default, and we can customize the responsiveness by providing classes of Bootstrap classes into our HTML code. And we'll take a look at that as well. And then finally, documentation. Documentation is an important aspect of a web application. We want to use documentation for developers to get started with it, or you can learn more about it, about the technology. So in case new versions come along and you want to explore the new features that have been introduced, as a developer, all you would have to do is to open up the documentation and look at how things are structured, how you can use the new code to build your own features. So finally, we have come to the hands-on aspect of presentation. So let's take a look at that. Before we go to the hands-on, this is the Bootstrap documentation site. You can go to getbootstrap.com. This is the site on which you can find anything and everything that you want to find out about Bootstrap. So in case you wish to learn more about Bootstrap and new technologies that are relating to Bootstrap, what you can do is you can just go to the homepage, go to documentation, and you can go down and you can see all the technologies or everything. And if you want to learn about a specific concept such as layout, grid layouts, and utilities for layouts, if you want to take a look at other components, you can take a look at the code, images. If you want to learn how to build a card, carousel, or forms, you can just click on one of these. It will open up. Another thing that's great about Bootstrap is that it provides these things called scroll spice. So if you want to scroll to auto sizing, just click on this and it will take you to that piece of code and it will explain how this is working. If you want to take a look at other forms such as form control, you can take a look at it here. it really doesn't matter. It will take care of it entirely for you. Also, you can take a look at input groups. You can take a look at jumbotrons. There are a lot of components that forms provide us with. So, in case we want to get started with it, first things first, we have to get some link to Bootstrap. And again, for that, you just have to click on Get Started. The first link here is the only link we need. It's the bootstrap.min.css. You can download it and install it on your own system, but we don't have to do that because we just want to use it once. Also, if you want to use it with React.js, you can use this. It's called Code Sandbox. Click on the Create Sandbox feature or button. In case you're trying to follow along, just use Code Sandbox because you don't have to install anything there. And just click on React. It'll open up in a few moments and it'll show us the output. And this is what it looks like. This is the default code. You can change it whenever you wish to. So that's the default code for Code Sandbox. And there's another project called React Bootstrap. When you click on Get Started, this basically is a library that has Bootstrap integrated with React component. So basically, you can just import a component and use it. So for instance, if I wanted to create a Jumbotron, instead of me having to write all the HTML code, all I could do is import Jumbotron and just type Jumbotron in my code and it will work. So if you are willing to not learn Bootstrap from its scratch and you know Bootstrap and you just want a library that does it entirely for you, you can use React Bootstrap. So that's one way to get started. But what if you want to build everything in React.js and Bootstrap from scratch? Well, there are ways of doing that, and we'll just take a look at those right now. But for that, firstly, you would have to have npm installed. npm stands for Node Package Manager, and you also need to have after Node.js, you need to have React.js installed on your system, which is Create React App. Let me just show you how you can do that. Make sure that you have React.js installed or Bootstrap in Node.js installed by typing node dash dash version, and it gives you a version that's at least this one. Then it'll be fine. Now let's take a look at how you can create a React application. Do that. Just type npx create React app, and here you can type the name of your application. If I want to create an application that says React Bootstrap, then I can just call React dash Bootstrap and press enter. Now I already have it done. In fact, I'm in the same folder. So I'd just like to show you that. Once I'm done, this is the folder structure. It comes with a lot of files in the source folder. I have removed all of those and just kept the app and index file. Now if I run this, npm run is the command that will run our React application. And okay, so it's saying npm start should be the one. I can just type this and this will work as well. If you want to run tests, you can run npm run test and it will work that way as well. So we are incrementing and this is what it's showing right now. Our code is running. This is the user and this is the command line interface that is being shown. We have a local network server that is localhost 3000. And now what we have to do is I have opened up the code in my browser and my code editor as well. So now if I want to make any changes, let's say I make a change by typing in h1 tag. In the h1 tag, I say hello, I save it, go back, and this will be reloaded automatically. I didn't have to reload it at all. So as you can see that this makes our development quite easy. So now let's start by creating a form using Bootstrap and React. All I will do is I'll create a folder. I'll call it components, press enter. Then I'll create a new file. I'll call it form.js. And you can call it form.jsx. It really doesn't matter. But I like to call it form.js or jsx. So now we need to create a component. Before that, I'll just like to use it here. And to do that, all I have to do is use the form component by typing in form. And now I need to import it. And for importing it, all I have to do is type the import form from and I have to type the word form correctly, and I'm using components slash form, and we're done. So now I have to return a JSX code. Firstly, in the form, I have to import React. Now that that is done, all I have to do is export a by default a function. I can give it a name, but I don't really have to do that. And now all I have to do is I have to return some JSX code. In case this doesn't make much sense to you, stick with us till the end and we'll show you how you can learn these things. But by default, what we're trying to do is we have created a JSX code, and now we're trying to create a form. Creating a form is quite easy. We just use the basic HTML commands. And now I'll create a div tag. This is where our Bootstrap code comes into play. So Bootstrap basically works with classes. If you take a look at the documentation, they will have code that has the word class in them. But if we take a look at React, it allows us to use the keyword class name instead of class. This is because we are using, even if it looks like we're writing HTML code, we are writing JavaScript code. And in JavaScript, class is a keyword that actually means something. So to avoid the confusion, we have a prop named class name, which when converted to HTML will be converted to class. So if you want to apply a class, here we have to apply a class known form group, group. So this makes Bootstrap available to our user interfaces and tells us how the user interface should look like. By default, it's not going to look anything like a Bootstrap form because we have not included Bootstrap in our project yet. But I'd like to show you how to do that in a moment. Firstly, I have created the form group. Now I need to create a label and an input. The label is there for, and we use the HTML4 in order to make it accessible. So it's going to be for an email field. I'm basically creating an HTML login form. And now email address. So I want the user to enter their email address here, and this will be inputted in an input of type email and the ID of email, because this is what the for tag is going to look at. Then we want to use a class of form control as well, and class name is going to be the one that we are using, form control. And if you want to add more attributes, you can, but here we don't really have to. And finally, we can add another text that tells us something more about our form, but we don't have to. So if I save this, if I go back to my code, this is what it looks like. Now this does not look very pretty, neither does it look anything like what we have seen in Bootstrap. The reason why is because we have not added Bootstrap in our code yet. So all we can do here is just copy this code, which tells us how to use it, copy and paste the style sheet link into the head of our code before all of your CSS loads. So when you're using Bootstrap, you go to the public folder, index.html, paste it here, right before title, save it. Now if I go back, now as you can see, this looks much nicer. However, it looks very contrived, and we'll just take a look at how to solve that in a moment. But before, let's just build our component. So the first form is done. Second, I'm just going to steal it from here. Here I want a password. Password type is going to be password. If I save this, what you will see is it's the exact same thing. Now comes the interesting bit. Now after I've done that, I can also create a checkbox, a kind of checkbox that you would see when you are working on a form that tells you that allow it to remember you for a long time. So here I have to again use a class name. I'll call it form group, and it also needs another HTML tag, form group form check, and that's done. So that's how our form is supposed to look like. We have a form group, we have a form check, and now we need an input, and we can also have a label. First, let's create an input. The input will be there so that the user can tell us what they would like to be the value of this input. So checkbox is there. Then we have class name. Class name is equal to and it's going to be equal to form check input. And these are all the things that you can take a look at the documentation for in order to get a greater idea of what it actually is. Also, you can create an ID for checkbox because we are going to put this in our label. Now the label is going to be for checkbox, and what I want the label to say is remember me, and also you can add a class here so that Bootstrap can style it, and the class is supposed to be form check label. This is done as well, and now finally we need to have a button. Now the button doesn't need any div to wrap it. All we need is a button that can say a lot of things, but all we want is it for it to be of type submit, and we can call it login, and it needs to have a class. Now the class is going to be for us, it's going to be btn primary. The primary is what's going to define its color, and now all we have to do is save this. If I go back, this is what our code looks like. This looks like a typical input button, and as you can see, when I click on the labels, my inputs get to be active. I think the password one, I made it incorrect. Let me just see. If I go to password, firstly I have misspelled it. Now it should work. So if I click on the password label, it activates my input. But as you can see, it's very stretched out. Again, Bootstrap provides us with styling that allows us to deal with this. Go to my div outside my form component, and I have to add a class name. This will be called container. When I put container here, as you can see, everything squishes in between. Now this does not mean that I have to only use Bootstrap styles. I can add my own styles, as I'll show you here. So all I have to do is use style, and I want the max width to be 500 pixels. Save this, go back, and as you can see, it's squished down. Now if I want to reduce this even further, I can just type padding and make it be equal to 50 pixels. Save this, go back again, and as you can see, now it looks like an actual login form. I can put in some HTML, remember me, and I click on login and it will submit. But since it's not an email ID, click on login, and since it can't submit anyway, it just submits it to itself. And we have our code. So this is what it looks like. This is what Bootstrap looks like. In case you were wondering how did I got those styles, you can take a look at the documentation. You can take a look at the kind of form that we built. It's something that's exactly like we built here. You can take a look at the code. If you want to take a look at individual components, you can, such as checkboxes are here. You can click here and take a look at the checkboxes, how they are built, what are the classes that we need there, what these classes do. Everything is displayed here, so you can use them to your own advantage. Now, in case you have learned these things, these are the technologies that you can use. You can use Code Sandbox to build your form components. You can use React.JS to build your user interface, and you can use Bootstrap to provide it with styling. Now that that is done, let me show you resources through which you can learn these things. So an investment in knowledge always pays the best interest is one of the quotes that tells me how you can learn new things, and you should always strive to learn new things. Keeping that in mind, we have a community site called intellipaat.com/community, in which you can post questions that you have about certain technologies, or if you run into certain issues or errors. The community is filled with like-minded people such as yourself and your peers, and they can help you out with these problems if you get stuck somewhere. If you want to learn something new, we have a blog, intellipaat.com/blog. You can visit us, take a look at the kind of content that we're creating for you. You can take a look at the kind of tutorials that we're creating. If they're useful, you can take a look at those. If you're more of a visual person, we have lots of free courses available on our YouTube channel. You can take a look at it, subscribe to it if you wish to. We produce new free courses on a day-to-day basis, and we give you new free content every day. In case you wish to take your career to a new height and you think these technologies are fine, but you want to learn them and prove that you have learned them, then here's where you can do so. This is our website, intellipaat.com, and we have a postgraduate certification available in full stack web development. What you can do is you can visit our website and get in touch with our contact advisor. This is accredited by the Electronics and ICT Academy in IIT Guwahati. So this teaches you everything you need to know in order to become a full stack developer. It teaches you a lot of technologies ranging from HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React.JS, Git, MVC frameworks, backend, frontend, everything that you need to know in order to build applications that work on the web. You can take a look at the batches that are available. You can take a look at the duration. We give you a lot of free content. We have 500 hiring partners. So once you are done and completed the course and acquired the certification, we can connect you through hiring partners and through which you can get job opportunities. You have 24/7 lifetime support, and you learn a lot of things ranging from Linux, SQL, MeanStack, Node.js, and many other things as well. You learn front end and back end as well, and you can get better and better opportunities once you upskill yourself. In case you're wondering what you're going to learn, you can take a look at the curriculum. You can take a look at how the certifications will look like. This is the curriculum, will teach you everything that you need to know from front end to back end, and you can learn everything that you need to in order to build these web applications and put them on your resume. We also give you 7 guided projects to practice, so that if you get stuck, you can contact us and we'll help you out. Also, these projects are very useful to put a lot of weight on your resume. So in case you are trying to get a job in a multinational company, in a good company, then you would need to show your work. So you need to show how you work and how you can get things done. And if you already have completed some projects, that really goes a long way. When we take a look at the kind of projects that we're covering, we have testimonials. You can take a look at those as well. It's one of our highest rated courses. And if you have any questions, you can visit our FAQ section and take a look at the questions that you might have. If they are not listed in the FAQ section, then let me guide you through a resource that can help you out. Before that, thank you so much for joining me. This is a coupon code specially for you guys. It's YouTube 30. It gets you 30% flat off on any of our courses. This coupon code is going to be valid for a limited period of time, so we recommend that you use it as quickly as possible, and you will get flat 30% off on the course that I just mentioned, or any course that you wish to buy from our website. With that, we've come to the end of the session. In case you are in India and you wish to get in contact with us, or you're in US, we have numbers listed on the screen. In case you're more of an email person, you can contact us on the email that is listed on the screen. We have 24/7 support from our course advisors. If you want to explore the opportunities and understand which course will best suit your needs to get you to on the right career path, you can contact our course advisors as well as understand how to use the courses and technologies that we are offering to your best advantages. With that in mind, thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you next time.